Earlier this year, I was at a networking meeting, and a woman in her late 40s came up to me and said, "Oh, I wish I could be a philanthropist." She went on to tell me that she worked at a nonprofit organization and really didn't have the money that she wanted to contribute to the causes she cared about. She continued to tell me all the volunteering that she was doing in the community. And I finally had to stop her and say, "You are a philanthropist." I shared with her many of the points I'll share with you today to help her realize that all she was doing already was philanthropy. I tell you this story because I want you to know now, before you get to her age, that you can be a philanthropist. So I will say it's a little hard for me to see you all, but I'm going to ask a question, and I'd love for you to raise your hands. Before we get too far, how many of you are already engaging in service in the community? I see a lot of hands going up. Okay. And how many of you would consider yourself to be a philanthropist? Okay, not as many hands go up in this case. I hope that those of you who didn't raise your hand may feel like by the end of this talk that you too can be a philanthropist. I believe that everyone can be a philanthropist. For too long in our society, philanthropy has been associated with older, rich, white males. This leaves out a huge portion of our population that is giving to the causes that are near and dear to their heart. I propose that we redefine philanthropy and make it more inclusive. As we do this, we should think thoughtfully about why we give and align our personal values with the contributions that we make. When you give in alignment with your values, it will be more meaningful for you and for the recipient. Let's start with the root of the word. Philanthropy has Greek roots, and it means love of humankind. Nowhere in this definition is there anything about money. And yet, again, we've come to associate philanthropy with the idea of a multi-million-dollar gift. Everyone has the capacity to love their fellow human beings. Therefore, you all can be philanthropists. I often say that philanthropy can be as small as a smile and as big as a billion-dollar gift, and there is so much room in between for you to find a way to give that is meaningful to you and will also be special to the recipient. When we're younger and lack resources, we may think that giving money is an impossibility, and yet there are so many other ways that we can give. We can give our time, as many of you have already indicated you do. When I was your age, I loved volunteering at the library because I was always reading books. And since that time, I've been able to tutor younger kids, I've cleaned up beaches, I've done a lot of different volunteering activities. You can also give your talent. I really love to bake for the annual Jewish Food Festival. You can even give your ties or your network. For example, I have signed multiple petitions for the marine environment to protect it, and then shared those on social media with my family and friends. Philanthropy comes in so many forms, and we as a society should validate and honor each of these contributions and the difference that they make in the world. So given this new definition, I hope more of you can start to see yourselves as a philanthropist. And let me ask again, how many of you have given time in the community to a cause you care about? Great. And how many of you have given your talent to something you're passionate about? Lots of you. That's so great. And how many of you have maybe shared a petition online or shared a website about an issue that really concerns you? Also a good number of you. How many of you have made a monetary contribution to an organization? Great. I love seeing all these hands go up. If you have raised your hands for any of these, it means that you are a philanthropist. So I'm going to ask again, are you a philanthropist? Could I see the hands of those of you in the room that are philanthropists? Thank you. I see some confident hands out there, if I'm not too blinded. So you may be wondering how values play a role in philanthropy. Each of us has a set of values that are important to us and guide how we make decisions in the world. These are things that we've learned usually from our parents or our grandparents, and we pick them up through life experience. The values that you have now may be very different from the values that you have in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. When we take time to discover and articulate what those are and what's important to us, we can make more informed decisions, whether it be where we go to college, what we want to study, or how we give our time and money. I want to share with you my own experience. I have gone through a set of these values myself and determined what's of importance to me. I'll say it's not an easy task because everything on the list is of some importance. It's what one might call a choice between right and right. However, I've come up with my top 6 values. They are integrity, relationships, compassion, personal growth, community, and sustainability. I'll admit these have changed over the years as I've done this exercise with more regularity. But there are 2 that have always remained in the top. They're integrity and compassion. To me, it's important to act in alignment with my values. And compassion has been at my core for as long as I can remember. I want to share with you an experience I had recently where I was able to act in alignment with all 6 of these values and give in all 4 of these ways I've talked about. I didn't realize it initially, but as I've reflected on this experience, I've really come to find how aligned it was with who I am and what I value. I love sea turtles. I've collected sea turtle trinkets for years, and all of my friends know that sea turtles are my thing. If you've been even close to me today, you'll notice I'm wearing sea turtle earrings. To me, sea turtles represent longevity, grace, and peace. Yet 6 of the 7 species are endangered or threatened. They've been on our Earth for millions of years, and yet are now on the brink of extinction. They are hunted at every stage of their life cycle by both man and natural predators. So my dream for years had been to help save baby turtles. And last year, I was finally able to make that dream come true. I spent 2 years, I wish. I spent 2 weeks in Nicaragua working with 2 conservation organizations to help save 3 species of sea turtles. Now, you may be wondering how this experience aligns with my values. Let's start with the obvious value. Sustainability. I care about the sustainability of the environment, and I want to see these species survive. I also feel compassion for them and the threats that they face due to human hands. I see myself as part of a community, a group of people that are working to protect these animals. And while I was in Nicaragua, I developed relationships with other members of this community. I also felt a tremendous sense of personal growth while I was there, and even after my time in Nicaragua. I was experiencing a new country, a new culture, and new people, all while learning even more about the turtles I care for so much. And finally, integrity. All of these actions were in alignment with my deeply held values. So you may be wondering now how I gave my time, my talent, my treasure, and my ties. Time is obvious. I spent an amazing 2 weeks of my life in Nicaragua with the locals who are helping to conserve these animals. We'd go out at night, we'd look for nesting turtles, and when we would find them, we'd take their eggs back to the protection of a hatchery. And then the eggs that had been there for a while that were starting to hatch, we'd collect them, weigh them, measure them, and made sure that they made it safely out into the sea. So at every stage, these animals were protected. I was a happy camper even after sleeping less than 6 hours in a hammock. I was also asked to write promotional materials for their sea turtle hatchery tours while I was there. I write a lot in my day job, so I never imagined that I'd be sitting barefoot at a picnic table in the sand, which was kind of a nice way to write, and that was a way that I could contribute to the cause. Before I even got there, though, I had been promoting these organizations on social media and the good work that they were doing. And when I came back from this rich experience, I was an even more vocal advocate. I also made sure to make monetary contributions to these organizations. I cannot adequately express to you what a powerful experience this was for me. Now, just over a year after I've returned, I've finally come to understand how fully aligned this experience was with my values. It isn't always immediately obvious. You too can have an experience like this. There are so many benefits to giving. Numerous research studies show how giving can lead to a happier, healthier life. In fact, giving is highly aligned with happiness. The top reported source of happiness is helping others. We often think that if we get into the right college, get the right job, make a certain amount of money, live in a certain town, we'll be happy. And yet this only accounts for 10% of our happiness. 50% is genetically preset, and the remaining 40% is in our control. It's made up of these intentional activities we engage in, like giving. Helping others, whether you run the race for a cure, you spend time with someone in need, you make a donation, all of these are something that create a helper's high or a giver's glow. This is when dopamine is pumped into our brain and elevates our mood. And the more you do it, there's a cumulative effect. So the more you help others, the more you give, the happier you will be. In fact, just thinking about giving creates an elevated mood. When you choose to give, it signals the pleasure center in your brain. I, of course, am recommending that you take the step further and act, but if you can only just start by thinking about it, it's a good place to start. Volunteering can add years to your life, regardless of the age at which you start. The key is to do it with regularity. And the benefit, which I hope will interest you the most, is that when you give in high school, it's a predictor for good mental and physical health as you age. By starting now to give in any of these ways, your time, your talent, your treasure, or your ties, you will create a protective halo around yourself. When we give in alignment with our values, we are reinforcing our authentic selves. We are validating who we are and how we want the world to be. It's not always easy, though. I recognize that. It takes courage to examine what our values are, to make decisions in alignment with them, and to act accordingly. However, when we give in this manner, we will lead a happier, healthier life. So as you go out into the world, as students, as leaders, as newly independent teens headed off to college, some of you, I ask you to remember that you can be a philanthropist. You can be intentional about the way you express your love of humankind, And you can change how society defines this lofty term. Thank you.